Cory Mosley.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody for joining us today. I'm happy to be participating. These type of events and these type of opportunities are always important. Just to take some time, to continue to sharpen that saw. I mean, we've all heard the cliches. We've all heard the different adages about, why we want to keep our skills moving forward. So it's always great for all of you that took the time out today to spend with me. I certainly appreciate it. We can't get our time back, so I want to try to make it valuable for you. What my aim is over the time that we have today is I kind of want to speak to customer communications, how we're communicating, the things that we can do to help advance, sell more cars, earn more money. I mean, these are all the things that we're generally working for. So if you're working in a dealership and you're working the sales capacity, we work for two things traditionally. That's compensation and recognition. So I want to hope maybe after this you'll have some tools and we will have shared some things that will help influence both of those. I want to dive right in. Voice is a little hoarse. I had a full morning session at a couple dealers this morning, so I'm darting right in to jump on this call. What I want to kind of jump into is I want to talk about kind of where we are and where we're trying to go. Right now, we're immersed in this information age where right now a lot of the emphasis on what's going on in dealerships and the chatter and the articles and all the different things out there, a lot of it's about, social media and, and staying connected and different resources for that. And a lot of times it's easy to get distracted while we're, trying to make sure our Facebook is updated or we're building our fan base or we're doing all these other things. It's so easy to get distracted away from the things that really on a day-to-day basis are impactful at the engagement level. I'm a big engagement guy. Really what I care about, and there's a million different things we can do. There's a million different things that dealers are doing out there to drive traffic and to create opportunities. But now when the rubber meets the road, it's really about engagement. And the old school philosophy was kind of this, just bring in more customers and we'll sell the cars, bring them in and then we'll do the rest and all of these different things. And most of us know at this stage in the game that the market has changed. The market has forced us to whether expand or become expendable. So we're now looking at the scenarios where we're trying to maximize every opportunity. So I want to give you the structure here of what I call 4.5 elements of creating a deal. Obviously, we don't have time. My average, program is 8 hours, so we don't have time to jump into all of the details. Let's go ahead and move the slide. So, but what I want to do is I want to give you kind of this 4.5 elements, my take on what goes into creating a deal and kind of how we get there, and then we're going to pull out really the communication one, and we're going to pull out a couple of those to get into today where we get into more detail. So when I look at this 4.5, and I'm pleased, I hope you got some pen and paper out and you guys are taking some notes on this because it's really, really good stuff, if I might say. But when we look at the 4.5 elements, when we look at creating the deal, what we're really emphasizing, kind of what we're looking at, is we're looking at a couple of things. Number one, separation. So at the end of the day, what we're after is we're trying to create separation. So we're in this kind of environment now where if you agree with me on this, most of our customers are not first-time buyers. So if we agree with that statement, then that means that the average customer has bought several vehicles in their lifetime. So the adage that we've seen this movie before probably rings true. So we're in this kind of scenario where they've heard some of our lines, they've heard some of our techniques, they know about the wholesaler going to give us top dollar and the appraiser's on site and, we guarantee push, pull, or tow, $4,000 for your car and, everybody's approved, we're all number one. So they've heard a lot about that. And it's funny when you think about stuff like that, you might be advertising that right now at your dealership. We're number one. That might be on a big billboard. You can't go down a major metro area without somebody saying that, but the funny part about it is, the car business, the only business where you could actually get away with that. If Coke ran an ad and put up a huge billboard that said, more people in San Francisco drink Coke than Pepsi, and they didn't have the information to back it up, Pepsi would be sending them, threats of lawsuit. But here, you can have one billboard down the street where this guy's number one, and the next billboard down the street, and the other guy's number one. and everybody treats their customers the best. Everybody's number one in customer satisfaction. Nobody says, hey, we actually scored 77% last month. So it's this kind of mixed bag. So what we're at is separation. We're trying to deliver in a manner and communicate in a manner where they haven't heard before, so maybe they don't know how to answer us. They can't use the book on how to buy cars with techniques that you're using now if we're using some newer techniques, and we kind of believe that theory. So I'm looking at separation. So I want to create an environment where I'm separating myself. The second thing I'm doing is I want to look at how we're communicating. What's the outbound communication? So when you think about this in theory here, the average consumer will go into a restaurant, have a bad experience, leave a tip, never come back. That's the general theory behind how people engage products and services. Come to your store, maybe they're having a bad experience or something has happened in the process, and they never tell it to you because most people are not confrontational by nature. So there's a lot of type A personalities on these calls, and most good salespeople, quality salespeople, strong salespeople have that air of additional confidence and have that what they call type A personality. But most consumers are not. So they're not going to call the manager over and say the meal sucked and I want some free vouchers. They're just going to say we're never eating here again, and they leave. That's what happens in your dealership. Customer comes in, maybe something happens in the process, and it doesn't have to be obvious. It doesn't have to, for you to alienate a customer or lose an opportunity to sell a car, that doesn't have to be because the police were involved and had to come to the dealership. It could be something simple as your mannerisms or your word choice or just kind of how you're communicating. I know a guy in California that we were working with in Orange County, and he had lower than normal closing ratios, and in particular, he didn't do too well with female customers who came into the dealership, by themselves as independent buyers. And it wasn't because he was doing anything malicious or he was sexist or anything like that. Where he was from, they very Southern, and they used terms like doll and sweetie and things like that. And he was using that on the customers, and he was saying it casually, meaning nothing behind it. But it was alienating him from those customers. They were uncomfortable. And they weren't going to the manager to talk about it. They just weren't buying cars. So, when that customer leaves or we're bringing those customers in, you're in the BDC, you're in the internet department, and, you're turning over customers, or if you're selling start to finish, and they're leaving, and now you're calling and we're doing follow-up. Oh, well, we're going to hold off for a while. Well, a lot of times they're holding off because they've got a 36-month lease on a new car that's sitting in their driveway. And that communication, that could have come from something very simple and something just that you weren't really even picking up on. So a guy this morning in our session, in our live session, he says to me, he says, well, people like me because I'm not really a salesman. I talk to them like they're like, we're two guys on the street. So I said, well, the problem is all of your customers might not be from the street. So you've got some challenges in terms of how you're potentially communicating with the group of customers that doesn't really fit that particular mold. So that's what we have to be. That's what we have to be cognizant of. Psychologically, we think in terms of experiences. If I said the interview on the call today, if I said, what's the best party you've ever been to in your lives? A lot of you will think about, you can go there right now. You can visually go there. You'll think about the party, what was involved, who was there, what happened, what didn't happen. Now, if I said the same thing, I said, what is the worst experience? What is the worst party you've ever been to? You can do the same thing. Now, if I come back and I say to you, what about the other 200 parties you've been to in your lifetime? You can't think of a lot of the middle ones. We tend to think in those extreme circumstances. So when it comes to customers, we become very narrow because we assume one customer is going to be like everybody else, and we lump them all together. You have a bad experience or a tough time with a customer, now that influences how you think about the next customer or customers in general, especially in an internet or business development center. When you're dealing with internet leads and things are coming in, it's easy to get that vision. You're dealing with that guy on the phone. All he's talking about is, what's your bottom line? I don't want to hear anything about your service. I don't want to hear anything about how you take care of people. I don't care. What's the bottom line? So it's very easy when you're dealing with some of those customers, very, very easy to fall into this trap where that's everybody. Everybody wants to chisel, can't make any money, can't do any of those things, and we get that mindset. So it's something you want to be careful with. This game and being successful in this game is so much more psychology than it is just selling cars. And it doesn't matter what you're selling, what brand, where you're located. The psychology of people is really what you're trying to master and what you're trying to get mastery from. So communication, number 3, branding. So the brand message, what's going out? What do people think of when they're thinking of a dealership? What is the association that they make with the dealership? What's the brand message? Highway prices, small town service. What's the brand message? What's out there to the customer, and how are they seeing you? Certainly, you can't advertise yourself as the price leader and nobody sells them for less, and then wonder why everybody's calling you trying to beat you to death on price. So there's definitely a correlation there. You might be in a position, as a wide variety of people on the call today, you might be in a position to control that. You might not be in a position to control what your brand message is. But nonetheless, it is a definite contributor to the basis of creating that deal. The next one here is value propositioning. Value propositioning. So why, it's the why buy that we talk about. And we talk about this over and over again, and I've had stores that I've tried to beat the drum on for years that just won't, for some reason, that won't put it into place. And what I mean by the value proposition is, what is the separating factor? Don't tell me it's you. Don't tell me we're nice. Don't tell me we won the President's Award, because I have yet to meet a customer that bought a car from the dealership on the basis that they won the President's Award. So the real value proposition is, how do you create that separation? And I'm going to give you a key here, and I'm going to give you a tip. When we talk about value proposition, if you have a value proposition in your store, meaning there's something that we offer in the customers. We've got a benefits package. We've got a VIP program. We've got a points, rewards. We've got free for life, whatever that may be. You have to make sure that that becomes part of your pitch to a customer and your engagement with the customer in the beginning. And let me give you an example. So the organization I was with this morning, they have a program called Free for Life, and that Free for Life, complimentary oil changes, tire rotation, tires. There's a couple other things in the program. Now, they also have the rewards points, so you swipe your card. So here's the problem. They've got this great program. They advertise it. It's on their billboards. It's on the side of buses. It's everywhere. But here's where it's not. If I call the dealership right now and I got a salesperson on the phone, or I submitted an internet lead, or what have you, and I got engaged with the customer or the salesperson at the dealership, guess what they're not mentioning to me as the first thing? They're not telling me about Free for Life. So if I'm calling 3 dealers, I'm calling multiple dealers, I'm shopping for a car, I'm shopping for inventory, I'm shopping for price, whatever it may be, I need to hear something significantly different. Because if everyone's just telling me to come in or come on down, or when can you come in, when can you be here, we'd love to help you, chances are I've heard that at a couple of other places. Everybody wants me to come down. I understand it. I get it. I'm in the car business with you guys. I understand why we want them there. Are you more comfortable in your house or the other person's house? So there's no question that that's the advantage that we're looking for, and that's what we're after. But the key here is, what are we offering? What are we influencing? Now, for example, if you called that store and I said, thank you for calling Acme Motors, and I get to a salesperson and they're saying, I'm calling to see if this vehicle is still available. Oh, sir, I'd be more than happy to check that for you. But first, let me tell you, every new or pre-owned vehicle here comes with our Free for Life program, and that includes X, Y, and Z. Think about the power of that. Think about the power of that as a separating factor. So if you've got something in that store and you're working in the BDC, you're working in the internet department, you're on the sales floor, if you're on this call right now and you're in the BDC and you've got something, take it to the managers. Tell the salespeople. Bring it up at the meeting. They need to be talking about whatever the value proposition is. This is a real power opportunity to start to create separation out of the gate, and that's what you need to do. You need to get on the playing field. The conversation I was having this morning, I was making the point, anybody that's really, really good at rebuttals, because, to be really good at rebuttals, that comes from what, generally? Training, and the main thing is repetition. So anybody that's really, really strong at rebuttals and handling objections, well, my concern would be, why? If you're great at handling rebuttals, then you're getting too many objections. So the objective then becomes, how do I get less objections in the sales process so I don't have to be great, I don't have to have quick one-liners or know what to say or know how to respond. So that's the target here. So get them involved. You need to be value propositioning customers right out of the chute. Let them know what is different at your store. Now, by the way, what is different cannot be how much inventory you have, how many acres of property you're on. Listen, I love the history of the car business. I love the business. I love the history of family-owned and operated and third generation. I love that stuff personally, but it is not a key influencer. And for the most part, many dealerships, even some of the largest ones in the country, are family-owned and operated. So those are not the things that are going to gain distinction. What you want to be focused on is tangible items. And I don't mean you need to have a giveaway fest, but you need to look at how you can package some of the things that you may be offering customers that nobody knows about. So I remember sitting in doing training 60 people in the dealership, and I said, "What do you guys do for customers when they buy a car here?" And everybody screams out, "Nothing," and laughter erupts. But in the training room that I'm in, all along the walls are these gold, platinum, and silver ownership programs and retention programs and all these different things that the customer gets. So here's the dealership. They have it in a brochure sitting at the front of the dealership, but they don't have it, but nobody's talking about it. The salespeople obviously weren't aware of it, and they're not using it. So that's going to be a big one for you guys. The next one is influencing. So influencing is going to be a key issue. Everything that happens ultimately happens because somebody influences. And we talk about this as the 4.5 elements, but really that's what you're looking to do. You've got this core. So you've got this core. Your 0.5 becomes this influencing element. So if you can influence to buy, I want to influence the deal. So if you're whether influencing an appointment, you're influencing a sale, you're influencing a be-back to come back in, that's how you get there. If you can create the separation of the path to the deal, proper communication, path to the deal, branding message, path to the deal. Where's the value proposition? Path to the deal. Influencing, going to be a path to the deal. What influencing does, is the other thing it does, is it removes basically the group of customers that were buying anyway. And that's what I'm after. So you've got people that are walking in, you're at a Toyota store, the family's on the 5th Camry, they're coming in to get their 6th Camry, you're in a Volkswagen store, you got a new Jetta, you got a new Passat, you got new product, people are coming in, and they're coming in almost an order-taking capacity, where, not that we're not working for deals, but there's a group of customers that are just buying anyway. They've come to buy. What I'm after, and where your growth is, if you're somebody that's sitting on the call, and you're looking as a personal, if you're selling cars, let's say start to finish the internet, and you're looking for incremental business, you're looking for that type of thing. If you're in a BDC, you're trying to increase appointments or get more shows or get more people, that's your key demographic. That's the key right there of who you're after. You're after that group of people that you need to have the opportunity to influence. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about. Now, when we go on to the next slide here, real quick, and this is kind of the only graph or chart I'm going to show you. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is the only graph or chart I'm going to show you. We skipped one. And this is a survey and basically the survey question was, how much does the way the phone is answered influence your opinion of the company you are calling? And we didn't commission this. It was commissioned by a company out of Alexandria doing a telecommunications study. And what we were looking at, and I apologize if it's kind of weird on my screen. The chart's kind of weird on my screen. But nonetheless, what you can see here is that 82%, an overwhelming amount of people, and this is the only chart and graph we're going to look at because I'm not really crazy about charts and graphs, but I wanted to illustrate it. This is so impactful because 82% of people indicated that the way it was answered, the way that they were engaged, it had an 82%. That was how strong the influence was. So when you think about walking through your showrooms, or you think about potentially people who are still picking up the phone, going sales, leasing, new cars, used cars, or these different ways, and I'm sure there's somebody smiling on this call because if you're not doing it, you probably know somebody in the dealership who's still doing it. I don't do hand raises anymore in my live events. I just read faces because everybody's hand would be going up and down all day. But I know that that's huge. 17% said some, 1% said not much. So just a quick evaluation when you think about perception, when you think about how perception potentially stands to drive reality in terms of how customers are interacting. That's just such a really, really easy place to start and look at, hey, how we're doing it. And I'm going to give you a 3-step approach today before the end of the call on how you can evaluate and reevaluate anything that you're doing, any process, anything you're saying on the phone today, or any way that you interact with the customer, a real nice 3-step process that you can put towards anything you want to do. So I just wanted to share that little chart with you. It just illustrates how much is important. Let's talk about laying some groundwork. So when we look at laying the groundwork, a couple things I want to share with you today. Number one is I want to talk to you about something called the law of diminishing returns. And what the law of diminishing returns basically says is it says that if I continue to do the same thing over and over again, sooner or later, I'm going to diminish the results or the return on the energy that I'm expending. So when I talked about earlier, a lot of your customers have seen this movie before. So the question you have to ask yourself is, how much more will come on downward? How much more will my wholesaler is going to give you top dollar? How much more will if I could you, would you? How much more will those things continue to be effective resources? Am I catching you at a bad time? You don't need to buy a car today, do you? So, those are two of my favorites. Listen, I have a lot of respect for everybody that's out there, training, and certainly we have different philosophies. But a lot of you have been exposed, I'm sure, to that kind of line that, am I catching you at a bad time? Are you catching you at a good time? And I just think that's one of the worst lines for the internet I've ever heard. And applied to the internet I've ever heard. Here's why. The reason is, for those of us who have sat in the seat and are doing the job and have done the job as I have, we have a different appreciation than those who have never done our jobs or never worked in the BDCs and the internet. But here's the way I see it. I'm on a 7th or 8th or 9th call attempt to get a customer on the phone. I've been working it, showing up every day in my CRM, every 2 days in my CRM. I'm calling. Finally get the customer on the phone. The last thing I'm going to be thinking about, now this is just me, the last thing I'm going to be thinking about at that point is verifying if I'm catching them at a good or a bad time. The reasonable expectation is if a customer can't talk, a couple things are true. One, they wouldn't have taken the call to begin with, or two, they're going to let you know that before you continue to speak anyway. So why give somebody an opportunity to squirm out of talking to me? Because in that situation, what happens? You now have two kind of things, two decisions to make. So, am I catching you at a bad time, sir? Well, yeah, actually you are. So you got two decisions. One, when's a better time to call you back? Remember, I just spent 8 attempts trying to get this guy on the phone. Or my second thing is, I try to ram everything I have to say down his throat, get him to stay on the phone with me for a minute while I throw up on him. Oh, well, it's just going to be a second. And then you try to throw up. And he's already disconnected, or he or she is already disconnected anyway. So that's why that's just never been an exciting line for me. But my point here is law of diminishing returns. If you agree with this, then it is the perfect catalyst. I want to be a catalyst. This call is only so much you can get done in an hour. I want to give you some things that will become a catalyst for you to start a new conversation or a different conversation at your dealerships. So if you agree with me, most of our customers are first-time buyers, they've heard a lot of what we're saying before. Think about it. If you're not new to the business, let's say some of you on the call, I'm sure maybe are new to the business, but some of you aren't. Chances are you may have worked at more than one dealership. So guess what? Your techniques, your tips, your things that you're doing, your approach, your sales strategy, your process, you did somewhere else. You might have done somewhere else. You might have done somewhere else. Same thing for your managers and a lot of people working in the dealership. So that philosophy and those techniques have traveled around the globe, basically. So if you agree with me that they're not first-time buyers, if you agree with me that I could probably call 3 of your closest competitors and hear something on the phone that's similar possibly to what you're saying, if you agree with that ideology and you agree with that idea, then the law of diminishing returns should be huge for you because it creates an opportunity for you to start a conversation. I challenge you, call a couple of your competitors. Call them on inventory. Oh, I'm calling about stock number 227 that's on your website. See what kind of conversations you have. See how it compares. See how what you would say compares to what they're saying. And if it's close or similar, then you know you've got a clear-cut opportunity. It's almost like a self-test. You've got a clear-cut opportunity to start to work on some changes. The second thing here is huge, and I've been talking about it for years. The Me+3 rule. And what I want to try to put in your mind here, because a lot of times when we're with a customer, we have this feeling we're talking to a customer on the phone, we're working a lead, we've got them on the lot. A lot of us have this kind of feeling that we've got a captive customer, and the customer is just ours, and there's nobody else talking to them. So what I want to put in your head is, I want to put in your head statistically a factor that Me+3 rule basically means that every action you're taking with a customer, there's at least 3 other dealers taking the same action. You've got an internet lead on a Chevy Cobalt, there's somebody working them on a Hyundai Elantra, or 2 more dealers working on a Chevy Cobalt. So every time you send out an email template, every time you pick up the phone to engage them, every time you leave a message, just remember that there's possibly 3 other messages on that voicemail. And what that's designed to do is to hopefully refocus your energy that you're putting in and the technique that you're putting in to that individual call. Because it's so easy, especially if you guys, you're making 70, 80 calls a day, 90 calls a day, depending on the size of your department or what you're working. The word monotony is nothing new to any of you that are working these customers every day and have big work plans and to-do lists. The fact of the matter is, we look at that Me+3 rule, it's so easy to get out of sync. You're on call 56, but you know what? Call 56 has got to sound like call number 1. It's your responsibility to make it sound like number 1, because call 56 might be the person that picks up the phone, might be the one to call you back. So you want to stay away. When I talk about communication, one quick thing pops in my head as we're having this conversation. You want to stay away from simple things, like I hear this very often. Somebody's leaving me a message. Well, they called me on speakerphone, and then now it went to voicemail. So now I hear them grabbing the phone and picking it up and shuffling in the back. Or I can always tell when somebody's making a ton of calls, because on my voicemail, they'll be ending the call, when we're doing mystery shopping and stuff, they'll be ending the call as they're pulling the phone away from them. So you'll hear kind of, the normal version as they're talking, and then they'll start to pull away their voice because they're hanging up the phone. So it's like, I'll be available 555-1212. I'm here till 9 p.m. today. And then they kind of fade off, and the phone hangs up. So you got to keep that energy up. And you got to remember, they're listening to 3 messages. They're not going to call everybody back. This is not the age of taking your Saturday to drive down the Motor Mile anymore. So most of you know that if you've been in this business. This business is so much different than it was 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. So Me+3, any action you're taking is at least 3 other people taking the action. Next thing I want to talk about is the power of words. And I want to turn this into a conversation starter, just so you kind of, again, start to think about some of the things that we're talking about. And words can be so powerful because that's what you're looking for. That's the shift. We've got the old cliches, it's not how you say, something, it's what you say. It's, not how you say something, it's what the customer hears. We've heard all that stuff, and that's great. But what's really impactful, is the challenge is to start to replace some of those different word tracks that you're using now. Start to replace them. Start to examine the ones that you think fall into the law of diminishing returns category. Let me give you, we're going to go to the next slide. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. So 3 quick ones that I always use. Number 1, a lot of us have always heard about, global warming, and, we've heard that term before, and it means different things to different people. It's, some people believe it, some people don't. What do you think about? You think about the sun, the ozone layer, the polar bears. There's like a family of polar bears bouncing 1 foot on one ice cap or something because they've all melted, and they're all kind of sitting there, hanging on for dear life. You think all these crazy things. But you think something. Most of what you think is negative. So here's what happens. and it's amazing the jobs. I like my job, but it's amazing some of the jobs that people have. So some people have jobs, and their sole jobs are to do things like create words, and that's what they sit around and do. So they went to the person, there's a guy named Dr. Frank Lutz, and he does that. He creates words and different word tracks that we hear. So they basically went to him and they said, well, this global warming thing's bad. We need to put a little spin on it. We need it not to sound so bad. So they created this term called, it's not going to show up on the screen, unfortunately, but they created climate change. Now, if I said to you on the call, climate change, a lot of you have started to hear that, and you've been hearing it for some time. That was the replacement word. So now when I say climate change, you don't think, what do you think about? I'm essentially talking about the same thing. But when I say the word climate change, it doesn't sound negative. It doesn't sound like all the death and destruction that we thought of when we thought about global warming. It sounds, climate change. Oh, that's, for all we know, that's the season, spring, winter, summer, fall. So that's the power of it. I'm saying the same thing. Another great example is there's a lot of you probably out there got the iPad, first generation, second generation, the iPhones, these different things. So they coined the term early adopter. So they created this term, basically Apple and the technology people basically created this term early adopter. So it helps the people justify, and it helps the people feel good, the people that stood in line, the first iPhone in 2007, people stood in line, they're camping out, they're doing all this stuff to pay $600 for a phone. So calling you an early adopter sounds much better than crazy person who stood in line for a $600 phone, or if you were in the iPad line or whatever. So they call you an early adopter, so you can proudly say, I'm an early adopter. Don't be jealous because I'm an early adopter and you're not. But that's the power. I'm talking about the same thing. Still, I still stood in line for this $600 phone or whatever it was. But now if I can coin it, if I can put a phrase to it, I can control the emotion behind it. So, give you an example. It's like saying to a customer, it's like bringing up trade with the customer. The idea of trade. What are you doing? What are you driving now? Are you trading it in? Are you keeping your trade? Do we need to appraise your trade? So it's all these things that trigger these negative mechanisms in the customer's mind when they start thinking about that. I challenge everybody to go to Barnes & Noble's, go to the automotive section and see how many books you can find that, are telling people how to buy cars, the expose, insider secrets, dealer secrets revealed, how to buy a car and not get taken advantage of. And in these books, we know the kind of stuff that's in there. Never tell them about your trade. Don't discuss your down payment. Don't let them know if you're going to lease or finance. Focus on the selling price of the car and all these different things. So the challenge here is to do a couple things. Number one, put myself in an environment where I'm not asking the customer questions that they've heard a million times before because their reactions aren't become predictable. We've got this term out there that everybody knows. I don't care where you're loft on from. I don't care if you're in Cali listening to this or you're in Skokie, Illinois, or you're in Jersey with me. We've all heard, buyers are liars. How do we know a customer's lying? Because his lips are moving. And we've heard that. Why does that happen? Well, it happens because in a lot of instances, we create a predictable environment. We create this environment where we're asking these questions that customers don't necessarily feel comfortable asking. They know you're asking them for, the purposes of what you're going to do with them to learn this information. So if I can kind of create a situation where I'm communicating a little differently, or I have a different kind of track, so instead of come on down or when can you come in for an appointment, why don't we schedule an internet VIP appointment for you? Why don't we schedule a price and vehicle consultation? So it creates an environment where they haven't kind of heard this before. Yes, I'm asking them to come in, but do you know what come in means or come on down means to a customer? Or when can you come in to the dealership? That's like that's like root canal. That's like saying, when would you like to come in and have all your wisdom teeth pulled? It's the kind of the same thing. So I want to work to change that. The other one we use is estate tax, and we talk about estate tax, and then we call it the death tax now. So they wanted to they want to get rid of it, so they want to stir up an opportunity where we start calling it something mean and evil. Then that's the way to eradicate it. Things from the past, weapons of mass destruction, WMD. I'm not getting political here. I'm just making a point. That was a word that was created to illuminate a point and to drive a point home. So simple ways that we can start. I want to start that dialogue. So start by asking yourself, what are some of our most common sayings? What are some of the most common word tracks that we're using in the store here? And then you'll plug that in at the end of the call today when I give you the 3-step. You can start plugging that stuff in and start playing with it. Get a dialogue going. If you're a one-man BDC, kick it around with some salespeople, kick it around the dealership, or start a little group, call on the store, find some friends in the business, and start kind of masterminding. Obviously keep participating in things like this as well. So that's just a little sample of kind of how the power of words can be different. Now I can come on down and turn it into like I said, internet VIP appointment, or we can turn it into price and vehicle consultation, or something that just has a more creative tone that doesn't make people fear things. It's always funny when you talk about people in a dealership. Who's the used car manager in customer's mind? Customer mentality. Used car manager, guy that steals the trade. Finance manager, guy that takes all your money. Sales manager, the guy that did the best job as a salesperson, taking advantage of customers, and has been promoted to now oversee taking advantage of customers. I mean, this is the mindset that we're battling. It's never who you are, it's what you do that people have a tendency to hold against you. So we're fighting that battle. Now, if we can change our conversations and we can have some new lines and we can freshen things up so they're not hearing what they heard down the street, see how it all comes together? And that's what's really neat about it. I start with some changes in my communication. Now I'm starting with a value proposition to the customer. That works to create separation. That goes on to increase credibility and these other things we're going to talk about in the 4 C's in just a second. But it becomes this snowball effect. It's not about how I'm going to double sales tomorrow. It's about how you find the incremental business. How do you get 15 more people? How do you get 20 more kept appointments this month? How do you get 4 or 5 more car deals on the board this month if you're selling start to finish? That's the name of the game. How to incrementally do more business or increase your production and then sustain the production once you get there and not depend on big rebates, big incentives, cash for clunkers, or conquest money or pull aheads to be able to sustain that business based on technique. So let's go ahead and move ahead. I want to share with you some of the common phone challenges that we look at and some of the challenges that I want you to be aware of. Number one is going to be this idea of, are we working in a customer service environment or are we working in a sales environment? And one of the key areas that I always see create a disparity when we're working customers, especially on the phone, is that area where we're trying to serve the customer to the degree that we're almost playing tennis with the customer. And here's what I mean. Customer asks the question, they serve it up. They serve up a question, now we go answer the question and we hit the ball back. They now return the ball with another question, we go return the ball back. But we're never really closing. We're not setting a stage for an appointment. In a lot of instances, I mean, some of you, I'm sure are rock stars out there, but most of us need help. So one key way to look at what you're saying and look at what you're doing and saying, hey, am I operating in a situation where I'm just serving the customer? Customer calls up, I'm calling to see if this car's available. Be happy to check that for you. Oh, yes, it's showing available. Would you like to come in and look at it? So now you'd be surprised at how many people don't even go that far. Now, I'm not crazy about would you like to come in and look at it, but a lot of people, and I listen to phone calls all day and all the time on a daily basis, and a lot of us aren't even asking that part of it. We're doing so much to try to serve or to create satisfaction. Now, I'm not saying we railroad the customer. What I'm saying is that we plug that into an environment. That same call now, let's say that same call came in, an inventory availability check, which you get all the time. Saw a car on your website, want to see if it's still available, especially with used cars. So we get that all the time. And what if I could turn that around? What if I certainly took that call in, now I went to my value proposition. Oh, well, I'd be happy to check that for you, sir. But by the way, I'd like you to know that every new or pre-owned vehicle purchased at our dealership comes with our Internet Value Package or our Customer Benefits Package, which includes X, Y, and Z. I am showing that vehicle as available, and I'd love to schedule a Internet VIP appointment for you to take a look at that vehicle. So the flow was just so much different than what we might say or some of the things that you might be saying. My mission in BDC, handling incoming calls or my outbound internet calls, is to convert that deal, is to walk that sale. Email, phone, showroom. Most of you are working, assumably, we're doing the Innovative series with Response Logic, so most of you are working with that. So a lot of your customers have this great information already at their fingertips. So now I can really have a quality conversation when I'm now calling customers. If they've gotten their quotes, they've gotten alternate vehicles. It's really a great opportunity for a dialogue and not, simply a kind of grinder session. So that's really one of the neat things about the technology. But you want to ask yourself that. I want to serve the customer, but I need to serve the sales environment first. Fear of loss versus desire for gain. That's a term we've heard before, and you probably heard at some point in your lifetime, but it's really a guiding thing. It's like the customer's walking us around sometimes on a carpet, and, if we don't do what they're saying, they'll pull the carpet from under us. So you want to be careful with that, because just as you have word tracks and you have certain things that you say or do, so do the customers. And that doesn't necessarily translate to anything. When customers say best price or what's your bottom line, a lot of them are saying that because it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's an immediate thing that I can say to you to throw most people off of their game. So you call an internet lead, you get them on the phone. Oh, Mr. Jones, I'm calling from, Acme Motors. I understand you had submitted a lead here on a, 2011 Avalon. Oh, no, what's your bottom line? See, I can just kill your whole pitch if I shut you down like that. So, and that creates this kind of fear of loss. Oh no, well, if I don't just answer their question or deal with it head on or stop what I'm doing and do it their way, then I got no shot at selling this customer. And that's not the case. So you don't abandon what you're trying to do, which I think we all believe our approach is the approach that best serves the customer. No customer is served by calling up on some random car, asking for the bottom line, getting a price. He doesn't even know if that's a good price or a great price, getting a lease payment, doesn't even know if the equipment's right, not sure if that's what he really wants. I mean, there's a reason why we try to consult with a customer and we try to walk them down the path. There's a reason why we want to assert control, because we know better. We do this every day. They do it every 39 months. So be careful of that. The other thing is the trap of transparency. We're in this transparency environment. That's the buzzword out there, being transparent with the information, with what the customer's seeing. So again, you want to make sure that when you're working to be transparent, and my strong recommendation is spend 10 to 15 minutes a day going on the sites that your customers go on. These sites are changing, they're updating, there's different information there. Get exposure to what the customers are seeing. There's nothing worse than a customer hitting you with information that you don't have an answer to or that you're unfamiliar with. That's the worst possible place to be. And having come up in the car business, come up in the dealerships and the sales departments, I know we've got more free time than we'd like to admit. So instead of talking about, Plaxico bursts or if the debt ceiling is going to be raised or some of these other water cooler chatter, let's divert some of that energy to, to what's going on in the dealership and what customers are seeing or what they're getting exposed to on the web, the true cars of the world. Because we're way past Edmunds now. I mean, we're on the just more complicated sites, more products and services, all these different things that are out there now. So we want to keep up on that curve. Never stop learning. I always pitch that and drive that home. I've got 3 books sitting on my desk right now that I'm working through reading. So no matter where you are in your career, where you are in the BDC, if I've got a director on the line or you're on the real front lines, wherever you are in the process, even a GM on here, never stop learning. So no pre-call plan. See, that's a good one because most of us, you just pick up the phone, start dialing. So you want to make sure you want to look for hot button items if they're there. Can you talk about the availability of the vehicle? Is it a hot car? Is it a hot car that you can't keep in stock right now? Can you allude to that when you talk to a customer? Is there a trade involved that you can see? Is the lead come over and it says, whether they're on a brand new Accord, they're trading in the Accord. Great. See, I can go right to that. I don't need to get into all the extra stuff. You want to look at what tools are available. What can you use to your advantage to help create a smoother transition in terms of communicating with the customer. And the other common phone challenge is this long-term follow-up, exhaustion when you think about it. I was talking about today, if you listen to someone do long-term follow-up, so you're making that 30-day call, that 60-day call, that 90-day call, it can be pretty funny because, you talk about like the 5 stages of a breakup, and, you go through like anger and denial and regret and remorse and all these different things. So if you ever listen to yourself or listen to somebody else, day one, everybody's all chipper, excited, happy. Oh, I'm following up on your inquiry, and love to see how I can help you. I'm here today. Please give me a call. And then, we get the call like 4. It's like, following up with you again to see how I can be of assistance. And then, it gets like angrier. You're on call like 10, and then they're just like, yep, yeah, it's me. Calling again. Want to see if we can put a deal together here. And it's just like, you're like just unwinding. Then you end up in this regression. Like, we'd really like to help you over here. If there's anything we can do, please call us. And I know there's somebody cracking up on this call right now because you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to give you the key. It's not written on the screen. I'm going to give you the key right now if you want to get better with long-term follow-up. Most of us stop following up long-term not because we hate it or we don't think it's the right thing to do, but because we run out of things to say. You want to focus on, you want to start to build yourself an arsenal of relevant messages that you can send to the customer. And the nugget here is I want you to be relevant. So look at your brands, look at things that are happening with your brands, any awards, any new crash test rating information, any updated things that are coming out that would be relevant to a customer. So because remember, 90 days, if you're doing a 90-day call or a 72-day call, follow-up 72 days later or something like that with a customer, well, a lot of stuff could have changed. You got inventory changeover, you got 12s coming, you got 12s here, you got new inventory announced, you got a change off in incentives. So you always want to keep that message relevant. Not just we love to see how we can help you, we're here for you, blah, blah, blah. If you have a relevant message every time, it's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to allow you to create what they call in the marketing world TOMA, top of mind awareness. So it keeps you in front of the customer, but it keeps you relevant. Main thing it's going to do is going to help you continue to get your calls answered or start getting your calls answered. Because if I'm calling with something relevant, and even if they're not buying, even if they're not there yet, we haven't made any decisions yet. Instead of calling to see if they made a decision or where they are in the process, or I'm just calling to follow up, if I was calling with value, Mr. Jones, I know you were here on the Town and Country van several weeks ago. Not sure if you were aware, but it just got another 5-star crash test rating from the National Highway Traffic and Safety Institute, and I know safety was something important to you and the 3 girls. Work your notes. Hopefully you got a CRM program. If you're not, please get one, stand on somebody's head, and get a good program in your store. But the notes should be in there. I should know Janice is 6 and Michael is 3. So I know that was something important to your kids, Janice and Michael. Now, guess what? You'll get everything you need from that call. You'll get if he's bought something, if they haven't bought something, where they are in the process, what they're thinking. You'll get all of that without having to go call to see where we are in the buying process. So it's really a great way. You want to focus on relevancy. These hours are so tough for me. Let's go to the next. Let's go to the next screen because I got so much stuff I want to try to cover real quick. I want to talk about the 4 C's. That's a big one. The 4 C's is huge. So please, please, please write this down. If you want to get more effective in communication, these things are equal, and they also create a domino effect. If you miss one, it creates a domino effect against the others. So when we talk about the idea of the 4 C's, we're talking about 1, confidence. Confidence is the easy one because most of us, if you're working in a sales environment, have some level of built-in confidence. You'd be surprised. There's still a ton of extroverted salespeople. I'm not that guy that's going to talk to, I can speak to thousands of people, and I'm not that guy that's just going to walk up to people and start talking. So you kind of have these extroverted introverts as well. But most of us kind of have some level of confidence when we engage with the customer. But here's what happens. If you start talking to a customer, they've got information you don't, somewhere along the way, they know something you don't or familiar, or there's some break there, you start to lose that confidence. Now that affects your credibility. Then it's a domino effect. If they don't see you as confident, then that questions your credibility, and if your credibility is in question, then they may think you're incompetent. If they think you're incompetent, then see it all falls apart. So credibility, in whatever order you want to put them in is fine. Congruence needs to go last. Confidence, credibility, competence, congruence. Congruence goes last because the word congruence in the theory there is The congruence means flow. Do the communications, do the things you're talking about with the customer flow, or are you all over the place? So, yeah, there's $500 rebate, 0.9% financing, the car got a 5-star crash test rating, and the sunroof is now standard. How are you putting all that together when you're talking to the customer? So you want to be in the flow of congruence. So I work my confidence. If I'm confident, that gives me a built-in. Now, if I'm credible, that gives me even more. That gives me even more substance to what I'm talking about, whatever I'm telling them. So if I'm telling them with confidence, what our value proposition is, or why they should schedule an appointment at the store, or why they should buy the car, I got to be seen as credible. If I was on this call right now and I was fumbling through everything and, I forgot what I said there and I can't speak, guess what? I lose credibility with you. The moment I lose credibility with you, you start to say, who is this guy on this call? And now it's, are you competent or not? So this thing goes together. You want to start to master your communications, get better. Make sure, see where you are. Self-assess yourself. I don't care. Go home, turn off the lights, look at yourself in the mirror. Nobody else is around, and self-assess yourself and see where you are in these areas. Do you know your product? There is absolutely no reason why you should be sitting in the store right now and not know your product. I'm not talking about the PSI level of the tires in one model that you make. I'm talking about standard stuff like what comes in the SE package, or what's the difference between the SE and the SL. What's the horsepower in the car? Is this larger than the previous model? Got to master that kind of stuff, because that goes to what? That goes to credibility, and that also goes to confidence. So those are just 4 really key things. I can't drive it home enough that if you want to get better and start to master those communications, master those 4 items. They're 20. The kind of chart is broken up because they stand on their own, and when they come together, it's a real powerhouse. It creates flow. It reduces objections. It makes the sales process easy. The appointment process easier for you. And it's just a nice flow. Now, I want to give you a 3-step evaluation, and then we're going to close this thing out. I don't know if we put an actual hour on it, but let's go to the next slide. So I want to make sure they get the information. So I want to talk about a real quick 3-step evaluation process. Please write this down, and you can use the great thing about it is you can use it for anything when we're talking about communications. So here's what you want to ask yourself, whatever the topic is. So whether it's how we're handling incoming calls, how we're making internet calls, how we're doing follow-up, whatever it is, lease retention, whatever you might be doing in the BDC, sales retention, the warranty upsell, whatever. What am I saying now? And I want you to pinpoint why you are saying it that way. That's a big one, because a lot of us go through our process and our work process and have developed our strategies on the backs of that's the way we've always done it. Well, anytime I go in the store, if I'm going in to do a turnaround project where we're really going in and we're examining the whole sales process and looking at everything that's going on, the first thing I say, when we talk about what's your process now, what do you do now, is why do you do it that way? And I get a bunch of different answers. More often than not, though, well, that's the way we've always done it. That's the way the last guy did it. That's the tradition in the store, or that's how we've always handled it. We didn't even know there was another way. So you want to ask yourself that. What am I saying now? Why am I saying it this way? Are you saying it this way because you heard it at a workshop somewhere, or because that's how they taught you when you got there, or because that's how the other dealership taught you? So you want to look at that. What are you saying now? Why are you saying it that way? 3, is there a better way? And that's what you ask yourself. Is there a better way? Is there something I could be doing differently? Plug that in. That's when we go back to the other principles. That's when we go back to me plus 3. So what am I saying now? Why am I saying it this way? Is there a better way? Because I've got 3 other dealers leaving messages, 3 other dealers taking sales calls, 3 other dealers calling internet leads as well. So is there a better way to do it? Because law of diminishing returns says that if I continue to do it over and over again, I'm going to lose some effectiveness in it. So that's going to be key. 3-step evaluation process. What are you saying now? Why are you saying it that way? Is there a better way? Now you can apply it to anything, because you can say, what is your process now? Why do you do the process that way? Is there a better way to do the process? And then you start to examine, you start to look at resources to do that. And you start to come to things like this, and we got a ton of content on our site as well to walk you through that. So next slide, please, Maestro. I want to leave you with one extra thing here, and then we're going to talk about some taking action steps for you, and we'll wrap up. I want to talk about the idea of a momentum break. So what that means is our egos, in a lot of instances, tell us that we want to try to handle anything the customer throws at us. And I'm talking about this on the phones in particular. So I call it a momentum break because sometimes the customer calls you or engages you and they have so much steam. They want this, they want that, tell me about this, what's the miles, is available, what's the best you can do. They've got so much momentum on you when you're trying to handle the call that sometimes you need to break away. You need to break their momentum. That's what you're after. You want to be able to break their momentum. And to do that, you want a reason to break away from the call. So if that's, let me get the most up-to-date inventory, let me just check our programs. There were a couple of people looking at the car. Let me see if it's still available. I want to go get the name and phone number. That's my breakaway. But you need a reason for that. Not, in case we get disconnected, can I have your number? You want a breakaway reason, but that slows them down. So there's a reason why when a basketball player is hot and he's hitting all his shots, you don't pull him out and put him on the bench because he loses that. He comes back in the game and now he's throwing up bricks. So there's a reason why you let a guy who's hot. So if a customer's ever getting momentum on you, this is not about you not being able to handle the call. Put your ego aside that they were kind of running over you a little bit. This is a strategy. This is a strategy that you should be using to slow them down if they've got too much steam on the phone. So momentum break, have a breakaway reason. Next slide, then we'll wrap up. Or we'll take questions or whatever you want to do, Jeremy. So last thing I want to talk about, I want to just give you a couple bullet points on taking action because I want you to go take some. So when it comes to taking action, number one, I want to leave you with this. Number one, practicality causes delay, emotion causes action. So when you're interacting with customers, just remember that. You are after the emotion. You're not after the practicality or the analysis of things. You've heard paralysis by analysis, paralysis through analysis. Practicality causes delay because you're trying to be practical, the think about it's of the world and let it sleep on it's of the world. You need to inject more emotion to create the action there. Practicality causes delay, emotion causes action. That's going to be the key. And that's the difference. There's a difference between effective communication and persuasive communication. Effective communications explain, persuasive communications sell. 0% credit, transfer now, good for 12 months, no interest, lowest interest of the year, get our credit card, you'll love it. Persuasive communication. Effective communication, that piece of paper that comes with the card that folds all the way down to the floor, accordion style, that has all the terms and conditions and tells you how they're going to take your children if you miss a payment. So it is a different philosophy there. You want to be focused on persuasive communications. Number two, your impact is going to drive your income. So you want more appointments to come in. You got to focus on the things you can control. You can't control, unless you're a dealer on this call, you can't control the advertising. You can't control where the ads run, what type of ads. Some of you are working in the internet departments. You don't control where the leads come from. So what we can do is we need to always focus on what we can control. It's the idea of focusing on your economy and not the economy. So your impact is going to drive your income. Step it up. Take some action. Average performers plan what to say. Top performers plan what to ask. Your questions can create an environment of how they perceive you, how they look at you. So if you're just focused on loading up on rebuttals or loading up, word tracks are great, but if you're just focused on that, then there's an area of opportunity that you're missing because we want to focus on, what they're asking, especially when you get to the store. Especially when we talk about the interview. The idea of an interview, is not, what are you driving now, what bank, I need to know what bank it is so I can determine if you're a good credit buyer or a bad credit buyer. It's how they're using the vehicle. What do they like most about their car, what they like least. So you want to look at that. Eliminate or differentiate from your competition. So that's what I'm after. You want to eliminate the competition, and you want to do that through a course of differentiating yourself, becoming the obvious choice there. And at the end of the day, focus on the presentation. Focus on that pitch. Focus on the presentation that you're engaging the customers with, the questions that you're asking, how you're leading them down the path, those 4 elements of communicating. Where's your confidence? Where's your credibility? Coming across confident and having it all flow together. Jeremy, I'm open for questions. If you guys want to get in touch with me, flip the next slide. Whatever, Facebook it, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're trying to keep up with all that stuff, right? We're all we're all trying to keep up with all this stuff. So feel free. We got a ton of free content on the sites, articles, all that great stuff. So I appreciate you guys having me on the call, and I hope it was an hour worth your time. And I will stay on the line if we have any questions that need to come over. Jeremy?
Yeah, thank you, Cory. That was really great. Cory Mosley, Mosley Training, he has, this is just one aspect of his knowledge set, so if you guys want to reach out, please do that. If you have any questions, there is a question and answer and a chat feature. You guys can type those in right now. Give a few minutes or a few moments for any questions to pop up, if there are any. And just a little comment from Mr. Rahim. Thank you. Good job, he says. So there you go, Cory. A little kudos.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions that we can come in, feel free to type in the Q&A or chat, and this is your chance to get those answers that you're looking for.
I do not know the answer to life.
Exactly. I'll just thank Cory again for taking time out of his busy day, and this presentation will be on our website, and you can go ahead to the Automotive Innovators webpage, and if you missed anything, feel free to check it out there. And again, thank you from Response Logics, and Cory, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys. Everybody have an awesome August, and let's take some action right now. Thanks.
All right. See you guys. Thank you. Bye.